All right, welcome back to EDHTakes. Sorry we might have missed a week in there, but we're back and we're here to celebrate the Independence Day in the United States.
The 4th.
Yeah, this is the Independence Day special, and I'm Elijah Samuelson.
Yep, and I'm Spencer Cook. Nice to be back.
Yeah, it's nice. And so, how you doing, Spencer?
You know, I'm doing pretty well lately. I think it'd be a good. We're just kind of starting this episode off, talking about what's been going on lately for us in Commander, like specifically in Magic, right? I've been playing a lot of Commander. I've been playing a little bit of Modern lately, getting back into that, having a good time. How about you, Eli? Just mostly Commander, right?
Yeah, same deal. We've been getting back into in-store play, and we'll probably talk about that more later. But it's been nice and enjoying the summer. And yeah, we are recording this, like I said, on the 4th of July. So yeah, we're going to talk about something kind of related to that. We're going to talk about, there's sometimes this idea that that maybe we should claim independence from the rules committee as far as the ban list.
You told me you had some segue, and I was waiting for what it is, and I got you there now.
Yeah, so that's not totally what we're going to talk about, like the idea of people wanting to ignore the ban list, but we wanted to have a conversation about how the Commander ban list functions, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding around like how the ban list works in Commander, because in other formats it's pretty cut and dry. Like, it's pretty clear how that works. It's based off like the power of a card or like the ubiquity of a card, but it's not quite the same in Commander.
Yeah, and one of the, like you were saying, Eli, one of the things that I think is kind of important is like you'll see a lot of players like making comments about the ban list, or like saying this card should be banned. Obviously, it's way too powerful. But like you said, Eli, like the Commander ban list doesn't quite function as simply as other constructed formats. So, just because a card is more powerful than another card on the ban list doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to ban it. Or maybe it should be banned, but like they just don't do that a lot of the time. So
there's so many cards in Commander. Like, I mean, I guess the obvious comparison is something like Vintage or Legacy, and I think there actually used to be a thing on the rules committee, like ban list or whatever, where they said like all like vintage legal cards are legal with these exceptions or something like that.
Sure.
And they had to amend that when or no, was it Legacy where they banned like Luris?
Oh, sure. And then so they were like, maybe now we're not. No, all the
so it doesn't quite line up
overlap
like that
exactly
anymore. But so we took the Commander Rules Committee website philosophy document, and I just wanted to we wanted to read through that today and then just like break down the segments of that. And so I was going to start off by just reading like a paragraph at a time from that, and we'll maybe address some things from it.
Yeah, just before you start ahead, Eli, I just want to say, it's really interesting because like I don't think you or I, Eli, expect Commander players to have read every article that has been posted by like the Rules Committee or other people, and I think it's pretty fair to say that a good portion of players probably haven't read the entirety of the Rules Committee, the philosophy document, or other, things written by the people that are in charge of the format. So it might be good to kind of inform yourself on that sort of thing before you start making like very sweeping suggestions, right? And that's kind of what we're kind of trying to do here, right? Just make sure that people like understand like where they're coming from.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because before we started the podcast, I would consider both of us to be very enfranchised Commander players, and we play a lot and think about it a lot. But I didn't even, since we started doing the podcast at the start of this year, I've learned a lot about, the philosophy of Commander and, why certain decisions are made, and, we've kind of tried to consume more content, read more articles, and be more, open on the pulse of,
sure.
The Commander community.
Yeah, and, it's definitely not a thing that you can... especially if you're just kind of passively playing Commander, you're just not going to be exposed to a lot of these things.
Yeah, or some people might just not even care, and that's fine too. They just want to play the game.
Yeah, and that's great. But just if you're gonna, make a lot of very, opinionated statements, not saying that you're wrong or anything, just, maybe give that document a listen or a read, or just listen to what we read out today. So
yeah, maybe it's worth considering that even if we definitely don't agree with everything that the Rules Committee does or says, but you might want to think, maybe they've got reasons for thinking the way that they do.
Mm-hmm.
before you say they're wrong or they're dumb.
So why don't you get into the very start of that then, Eli?
Yeah, so their philosophy document starts off, Commander is for fun. It's a socially interactive, multiplayer Magic the Gathering format full of wild interactions and epic plays, specifically designed as an alternative to tournament Magic. As is fitting for a format in which you choose an avatar to lead your forces into battle, Commander focuses on a resonant experience. Each game is a journey the players share, relying on a social contract in which each player is considerate of the experiences of everyone involved. This promotes player interaction, intergame variance, and a variety of playstyles, and a positive communal atmosphere. At the end of an ideal Commander game, someone will have won, but all participants will have had the opportunity to express themselves through their deck building and gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of goes back to the this spirit of EDH discussion that we had in an early episode, and I believe Sheldon was the one who wrote this, so I'm just going to attribute that to him. If I'm incorrect, I'd like to be corrected, but I'm pretty sure he wrote this. So yeah, talking about the expression and like players expressing themselves, I think is like the number one thing we decided was common amongst most Commander games. Yeah.
One thing that I just want to kind of encompass with this paragraph is that they have a couple bolded phrases here, and one of them is a resonant experience. What do you think that means, Eli, in this context?
I think it means that they want people to think back on like their games and really like remember make memories, kind of like have a distinct experience from like you played Modern the other night, and like not that like you didn't have like some great games or anything, but like I don't know, playing like a Modern or like a more competitive constructed format, you might feel like a lot of your games kind of play out the same.
Sure, or something similar to that sense. I think like it says at the beginning of this paragraph. A format full of wild interactions and epic plays. That's a little bit, like it's not like very, specific what that means, but I think that feeling is what they're trying to encapsulate, right?
Yeah, they want to like that might be a strange thing to define, like hard to define, like for individuals. Some people like we might think like, oh, this really tight play we did was really epic or something, but other people might be like, no, I want to like do the thing where I liquid metal coating my nickel bolus and then turn it into equipment and equip it to another nickel bolus.
Yeah. And also just one more thing I want to mention in this little description is that they say it's designed as an alternative to tournament Magic. And I think that a lot of I don't play CEDH, but I'm a proponent of it, and I think a lot of CEDH players could read that and feel, this isn't for me. But I don't think that's the intention of this document to say. I think they more just mean the style of like you were alluding to earlier about how tournament Magic is very like matter of fact, cut and dry in a sense of like you have very very established decks with little variation and like kind of like games that play out similarly. So like I think the fact that it's a 100 card singleton format kind of leads it to that kind of alternative to tournament Magic, more variation, right? I think is what they're trying to say.
Yeah, and I think they really want the winning of games to be like the
secondary goal.
Yeah,
right?
Very secondary to like have everyone having fun, and I think everyone having fun in a game of Commander is a very good and a very noble goal.
Yeah, and I think we'll just kind of gloss over the social contract part because we talked about that at length in one of our previous episodes, the one about Rule 0 and stuff. So, Do you want to just move on to the next little portion of?
Yeah. So at first I wasn't going to read this entire document, but I kept like pulling out snippets of it and then realizing that every paragraph alluded to the paragraph before it. So I just decided we would have to read through the entire thing. So this is more getting into the ban list now. It says the rules of Commander are designed to maximize these experiences within a game of Magic. The addition of a Commander, larger life total, and deck building restrictions emphasize the format's flavor. They increase deck variance and add more opportunities for participation and expression. So I think that's kind of just reiterating the last paragraph and
kind of the things we were talking about a little bit, right? About
summing it up.
Yeah, variance, and they wanna that emphasize the format's flavor is kind of that wild interactions, epic plays, resonant experience. I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now getting into the ban list, they say. The goal of the ban list is similar. It does not seek to regulate competitive play or power level, which are decisions best left to individual play groups. The ban list seeks to demonstrate which cards threaten the positive player experience at the core of the format or prevent players from reasonable self-expression. The primary focus of the list is on cards which are problematic because of their extreme consistency, ubiquity, and or ability to restrict others' opportunities.
So this is like a really big, core part of what we probably are talking about today. And, whether you agree or disagree that they're successful in these goals that they have, I think we should at least acknowledge that these are the stated goals, right? They want to, ban cards that, try that reduce self-expression or prevent players from, having positive play experiences, I believe is what they said.
Yeah, I think the main idea here is if they feel like a card is that kind of card where you're like, well, this card goes in every green deck. They don't like the idea of that because that is in a way
restricting your expression because you kind of have to play it or something. Or
yeah, I think we talked about on a recent episode, the professor talking about cards that you have to play in every deck, and they cut down on your creativity.
Command Tower or something.
Yeah, Command Tower, Soul Ring, that kind of card, and those cards are a little different because they may be going in a larger amount of decks, but even you have something like Primeval Titan, and you can make the argument, well, you want to play that in probably every green deck,
or at least close to that, right?
Yeah, and I don't think they really like the idea of that.
Mm-hmm. And one thing important to note from this description is they say, quote, the ban list seeks to demonstrate which cards threaten all these things. And what that means in the context of their ban list is that they are not going to ban every card or even most cards that do that. They're trying to demonstrate the kinds of cards that lead to a negative game experience. And they've gone on the record saying this many times about how, for example, Leovold is a card that is banned because it does that kind of Wheel of Fortune thing, but they're not. I think they're never going to ban, or maybe that's a little bit too strong of a statement, but they're not banning the other cards that do that wheel thing because they're trying to set an example and not to ban them all.
Yeah, that's an important distinction to make. I think for the Commander ban list is that's how it functions, because I think a lot of people, even myself included, up until pretty recently, would look at stuff on the ban list and be like, well, this card's banned on the ban list, but there's this card that's arguably, or even sometimes objectively, stronger than a card on the ban list. And you could say, well, if this card's on the ban list, shouldn't this stronger card also be on the ban list? Or this similar card be on the ban list? But that's not really how it works, because like you said, if they had to do that for every card, there'd be quite a few more cards on the ban list.
Yeah, and not to jump ahead, but I think at some point in this article they say something along the lines of we like to be very, they don't like to ban cards, they're very conservative with when they ban and unban cards, because one thing they want to avoid is making it people's decks or their pet cards or whatever unplayable now. You don't want to avoid the thing of someone who goes and buys a card for a deck or builds a deck around a card, then you ban it, right?
Yeah.
So for example, I think something we talked about a little bit, Eli. I'm not necessarily equating the two cards, but Primeval Titan and Dockside Extortionist, right? You could argue maybe that Dockside Extortionist is kind of in some ways, a faster Primeval Titan, not necessarily better, but it comes out for less mana and it can kind of do similar-ish things. So there could be an argument that maybe Dockside Extortionist maybe would be banned under all the criteria that Primeval Titan's banned, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And going into that criteria, I'm just going to read the next section and kind of their explanation for the criteria of a ban. And it says, no single rule can establish criteria for a ban. There are many mitigating or exacerbating factors. Some cards will represent an extreme on a single axis. Others are a confluence of multiple smaller issues. The following isn't an exhaustive, nor is it a checklist, but... the following isn't exhaustive, nor is it a checklist, but it represents ways in which cards challenge the positive experience players look for in Commander games. It includes cards which easily or excessively cause severe resource imbalances, allow players to win out of nowhere, prevent players from contributing to the game in a meaningful way, cause other players to feel they must play certain cards, even though they are also problematic, are very difficult for other players to interact with, especially if doing so requires dedicated, narrow responses when deck building, interact poorly with the multiplayer nature of the format or the specific rules of Commander, or lead to competitive gameplay.
Repetitive
Gameplay, yeah. So they then say, cards which are banned likely meet a few of these criteria in a significant way. Not all cards which meet some of the criteria need to be banned.
So like we were talking about a moment ago about how Dockside Extortionist definitely fits the extremes of, a couple or several of these criteria in the same way that Primeval Titan would. But, just because Primeval Titan being banned kind of sets that example a little bit in the eyes of the Rules Committee, so we don't need to ban the other cards that are kind of similar, is the impression I get out of that. Yeah,
and I think they like to keep the ban list
small, right?
They like to keep it small, and they like to keep it consistent. Like, maybe it would make more sense to, like, take off something like Primeval Titan and then shift it to being, like, a stronger version of that kind of card, like Dockside Extortionist, or, like, a more recent card, because, like, with some of the power creep and Magic, you could argue, yeah, there definitely are stronger cards than that now.
But they don't like to ban new cards, right? Like that's kind of a feel bad for a lot of players. They try to avoid banning cards that just get printed, because a lot of players, especially new players to the format, they get their cards and they're like, oh, this card I just bought for Standard or whatever, or bought like a box and opened, I can't play it.
Yeah, and especially I think they're in a rough spot where if there's a card that comes out in a pre-constructed Commander deck, it's even harder for them to ban that card, because you don't want to... Mm-hmm. There's precedent for it, like, one time in the first year of Commander decks, they had trade secrets in there. But now you don't want to, like, have a Commander deck come out and ban a card out of it. So if somebody is new to Commander and they buy this pre-constructed deck, which you would assume is legal for tournament play, or, I mean, for, playing playing the format, you wouldn't want to have it illegal out of the box.
Yeah, and one thing they've done, like in Standard or something, where they've had banned cards in one of those decks, is they'd make it legal if you were playing that exact 60-card deck that was in the precon, then you could play the banned cards, but that's just like... That's ridiculous I mean, it's ridiculous in Standard, but even more ridiculous in Commander. Yeah,
that's the one exception they've had is back in, like, I think it was Scars of Mirrodin Standard, they had Stoneforge Mystic got banned out of Standard. But they had one, like, pre-constructed Standard deck that had Stoneforge Mystic in it. So they were like, well, if you buy this deck, you can play Stoneforge Mystic in Standard, but only if it's in the environment of this single deck, because they had, like, the, I think, like, the Cobblade sort of thing back then.
Yep, and I think there might have been a deck in, with, like, Ramanap Ruins, or the Raptor guy, or whatever, the dinosaur.
Oh, yeah, even more recently.
Yeah.
That might be true. Yeah,
or Tune of the Aether or something like that. But that's neither here nor there. So what do you think about, Eli, about this idea of not having to necessarily meet all these characteristics, but just be either several of them, or being very, like, polarized, like a super epitome of one of them, of all these characteristics of why they ban cards.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it makes. Obviously, Commander format, like, you have to... You don't have, like, data, like, from other formats to ban cards that are, like, in 99% of, like, top 8 decks or whatever. You can't do that. So, like, it feels like you really do have to kind of do some sort of philosophy banning, right? Where it's like you try to, outside of the game, like, cognify just what, like, needs, like, what goes against the format. It's a difficult task to do, but, like, they're trying, right?
Yeah, well, that's one of the big points people like to make against the Rules Committee, is they like to say, well, this is just these guys playing, like, obviously they probably play a lot of Commander. Yeah, it's just your opinion, man. They're just playing in their own, like, insular group in their own communities, and they're kind of banning things off of their own experiences. But more recently, you've had things like the Commander Advisory Group, which are intended to draw from a larger pool of experiences and get more different insights into cards that might be problematic.
Yeah, and one thing that I think a lot of complaints can come from is they read something, like, they read this and they say, they read this bullet point that says, prevent players from contributing to the game in a meaningful way. And they're like, well, then why is stasis legal in the format? They're like, isn't that literally that? And like, shouldn't that be banned? And it's like, yes, but like they don't. The hard part about coming to terms with how the ban list is run for players is that just because like a card necessarily like is the epitome of one of these criteria doesn't mean that it's going to get banned, even if it's like one of these criteria times 150%. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to be banned or it should be banned. It's very hard to kind of wrap your head around that concept.
Yeah, it's not a very clear cut if this then that for the ban list.
It's more like if this and we deem it necessary, and they just more oftentimes it's like this but we didn't deem it necessary. So I don't know. It's hard to wrap your head around, but like that's just something to be aware of when you're thinking about the ban list and stuff like that. Because like there's a lot of cards that could be banned that you could make very good arguments to be banned based on their criteria, but like it's not like that easy to get them to ban a card or for them to ban a card,
right?
Unfortunately,
yeah, because like you were saying, they say here we prefer to be conservative with what goes on or comes off the ban list. Commander players often become emotionally attached to their decks through play and personalization, and we value that experience highly. We only want to disrupt that bond when necessary. So I think that's a good point to bring up about, like you said, like banning cards might kind of take somebody's deck out. Like
yeah, it's very unfortunate. And the most recent ban that I can remember was when Iona, but after that they banned Lutri, and they did. I think the rules committee did a very good job of banning Lutri before it was even in anyone's hands, right? Mm-hmm. Because no one would have liked to have built that deck in paper or something, and then they have like their foil blinged out deck or whatever, and it's like, okay, now it's banned, right? Like a month after. Yeah,
that was a good thing to do, and that was a very good example of something that really definitely, like, I think anyone could see that card needs to be banned.
I think so.
Because of how, allowing Companion to be used in Commander and then having the card that's just, this goes in for free into every Is-It deck.
Or Is-It Plus, yeah.
Yeah. It would be kind of silly,
lead to the repetitive gameplay.
Yeah, exactly. And like they were talking about, like cutting down on creativity, like it wouldn't. Yeah, I guess it wouldn't stop you from playing another card, but you'd kind of have to be. You wouldn't want to be the guy playing Is It and like you're not playing Lutri. What are you, dumb or something?
Yeah. But like we were saying, Eli, like they tend to not do many ban list changes. I think since I've been playing the format. Let me think. If I think back, how many times have they changed ban or unbanned cards since I've been playing the format? It's been the Flash ban, it's been the Iona and the
Paradox
Engine, and they unbanned Painter Servant.
Yep.
And they banned Prophet of Krufix. And I can't. Oh, and they unbanned the big green guy with Flash. What's his name? Not with Flash. They use Flash. Protean Hulk. They unbanned Protean Hulk. I think since I've been playing Commander like 10 years now or more. I think that's all that's been changed. That I
believe
remember.
So. I think that sums it up. Yeah, because I think we've been playing around the same amount of time.
And that's about five different occasions and like 7 different cards or something.
Yeah,
or 6 different cards.
So I mean, that's a pretty good.
I think that's a pretty reasonable. Like very well, maybe reasonable isn't the word. It's not a lot of changes, and I think that's they're true to them. They're true to their statement about being conservative.
However, I know many Commander players that like to think like they kind of do the thing where like when they ban a card or like talk about banning a card, everyone does the thing like, I wonder what Sheldon lost to this week. But there's so many Commander players that are like, oh my god, this card needs to be banned, this card needs to be banned. It's like, I wonder what card you're losing to this week.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, yeah, people will do that about Sheldon. I wonder what Sheldon lost this week, but they really don't ban cards like you said, like they banned Flash. That wasn't a case of Sheldon losing something this week. That was like a concession to the CEDH community. They banned Iona, which arguably could be that kind of a thing. But besides that, what? Paradox Engine and then Prophet of Krufix. Like there's this over the course of 7 years or whatever. So I don't know, but yeah, do you want to just move on to the next little paragraph there, Eli?
Yeah. So to finish this up, it says, Commander is designed to be a malleable format. We encourage groups to use the rules and the ban list as a baseline to optimize their own experience. This is not license for an individual to force their vision onto a playgroup, but encouragement for players to discuss their goals and how the rules might be adjusted to suit those goals. the format can be broken. We believe games are more fun if you don't. So we read that bit out on our Rule Zero episode as an example of how they kind of would suggest players, and they even mentioned like earlier in this philosophy document talking about how certain decisions they feel are best left up to individual play groups and kind of shifting some of the onus onto
players,
individual player.
So one thing that they very obviously stated here is that they're not going to ban all the most powerful cards, nor do they want to ban all the most powerful cards. What they really want is, to show an example and say, behave, don't break the format kind of thing, and have fun however you can. So like that's, very obviously stated that they're so if you see a very powerful card or something, there's a good chance they won't ban it. Honestly, that's just the fact of the matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a decent argument for leaving it up and then just like having the players sort it out themselves. There's a decent argument against it. It's not cut and dry, but it's just the reality of what's going on. So
yeah. So, but like we were saying, like one thing against the functionality of the ban list, now that we've gone over that, is if they, like we were saying, most casual Commander players probably don't consume, like they wouldn't read this and they don't consume a lot of Commander content probably. So if you really wanted players to not do certain do things or certain strategies, like I know stack strategies or something that get brought up a lot, or like really fast combos, like a lot of the things that they make examples of on the ban list, like people are still going to play those kind of cards. They're still going to want to play those cards, and they might even, a lot of the time they probably enjoy it too.
I think, a lot of times players will see, a powerful effect on the ban list, and instead of thinking, this is what the rules committee recommends I don't do, they'll say, all right, I'm going to do that as best as I can without that card, right?
Yeah, and
nothing wrong with that, but
yeah, nothing wrong with that. A lot of cases you can achieve that like very well. Like you can still make do.
Even on like very like mainstream popular like Commander videos, you'll see game nights or whatever where they have people doing the with Cassius doing the stuff with Narset and Wheels, right? Like that's very frowned upon, like, or at least that's the example they're trying to set from the rules committee. But they players will do that, and that's okay. But that's just how it is, right?
Or like extra turns after Commander Legends came out, you might have Josh Lee Kwai flash in a Hull Breacher into somebody's in response to somebody's X-cost draw spell,
the Damnable Pact or whatever.
Yeah, and then everyone's just like, "Oh, what a good time! This is so fun."
Just a slight tangent. I have a curious. I have a burning question in my heart that ever since that happened, I just really want to ask Josh if what he thinks about that, because like I recall on the episode one of the episodes set review episode, Josh was like, this is a card that like I really hate they printed, and like I don't want to play it and I don't want to see it, something along those lines. But he played it in their game nights video, and I thought that was I was just curious if I were able to ask Josh a question, I'd be like, did you record that game night video before and that made you like aware of how gross it was, or were you just kind of like playing it because you felt you had to? I just want to know what that.
Yeah, did that experience inform your opinion of it a little bit,
or did you go after you said that and like kind of go back on it a little? Well, not go back on it, but like just be like, okay, I'm playing strong decks or whatever, and so I'm going to put it in there. I'm just curious. Like I'm honestly like no ill will or anything. That was a question I had when I saw that.
Well, and we definitely know people too who are like, man, I hate all these really powerful cards they're coming out with, and I just really hate their existence, and I don't want to see anyone else play it, but, you kind of have to play it, so I better be playing that card,
Yeah. Well, Hull Breacher is actually an example of a card that, I think kind of ties into this ban list thing, because wasn't there there's this interesting concept of, like, if, let's say that Wizards printed Hull Breacher in Commander Legends, right? And let's say that they said this, like, they had a PR statement that was, Hull Breacher was a card we printed specifically for CEDH. It's legal in the format, but that's our intent. Do you think that would make, like, a difference in how the card is, like, approached from, like, a ban list or from, like, a player's, like, in more casual settings perspective? It's an interesting topic.
Well, I think that would be pretty much just like this philosophy document where the majority of players wouldn't get that information, and I think a lot of people also probably wouldn't care.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I know you said earlier, Eli, that you think a lot of players don't consume a lot of Commander content, the average player. But I think, what you really mean by that is a lot of players are very specific with what content they consume. So like players, I think oftentimes don't read like articles from the rules committee. Players don't read articles in general very often, I would say. I mean, shout outs to all my people writing articles, and I like them and stuff. But most players are going to be watching YouTube videos or whatever, or maybe their favorite podcasts like EDHTakes, but Command Zone and stuff like that, right? So the places that this information is given out, like even like I think the times you have like Sheldon or other people show up on podcasts to talk about cards, I think that's where most of the information gets out, like the old Professor videos and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, so I think that raises a good point. How we've certainly known people, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who the only Commander content they consume is something large and well produced like the Command Zone, and that might be the only thing they listen to, and that's where they're getting the majority of their opinions on Commander related stuff from.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a show like that and they're having a discussion about the ban list and trying to interpret like why things are the way they are, I think it is their responsibility to interpret a lot of things in as good of faith as they possibly can, and maybe own up to the fact that if they don't know something, like we're doing this right now, I think we've done like our due diligence and our research and stuff, but at the same time, if we're not sure about something, we're going to say we're not sure.
Mm-hmm.
And really the awesome thing about Commander and the Rules Committee is if you have a question about something like this and you want to ask Sheldon, like, Sheldon, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, you can just ask him that. You can go on Twitter and be like, hey, what's your thought here?
Yeah, and when you say, Sheldon, what the hell's wrong with you, you mean, like, how are you able to just respond to so many people and like that's impressive, dude. That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
Not like, there's something wrong with you. But, like, yeah. That's really, like, actually, like, take that to heart. Like, I'm not telling you to go and harass Sheldon, like with all your questions, but, like, if you honestly have, like, a question about something in the document, I would wager that he would answer you in a Twitter tweet or a DM or something. He would. I think he would, honestly.
I really think he would. I mean, like, you need to be
cordial,
understanding. Like, if he doesn't get back to you or something, like, don't, like, pester people. But if you really have a burning question and you word it respectfully and, like, you are respectful, I think most people will give you the time of day for that. Because, I mean, I understand that Sheldon, I'm sure most of the Rules Committee, they like engaging with the player base.
Well, yeah, they do it as it's like charity work almost. Like, they're not paid to be Rules Committee members,
right?
So, like, I don't know. They have if they're willing to do all that work. Like, I would imagine they'd also be willing to do the more down to earth like talking people work, right? Maybe.
Yeah, and then a similar deal with the KEG. I know a lot of Commander players might get this feeling like, the Rules Committee making the rules of Commander, you might feel some form of, like, jealousy or, like, spite, being like, well, I think I know more about Commander, like, so why do they get to make the decisions? They're just wrong sometimes. Or, like, the KEG, like, you might not like their opinions and their takes and stuff, but you have the ability to talk to these people and, like, communicate with them. And I know especially, like Shivam, he's on Twitter all the time. You can talk to him about anything.
Yeah.
Like, he'll talk to you. But he's a really nice guy. Like, he will listen to, like, he is definitely, like, not the definition of a casual Commander player. But he, after, he had this podcast where he talked to the Professor about Commander, and, like, he kind of said some things that a lot of CEDH players didn't take very well, because he wasn't being very
eloquent.
He wasn't being very charitable to, like, their
experiences.
Yeah. And so after that happened, like, he kind of took some self-reflection, and he took more time to engage with the CEDH community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was actually, like, a very influential force on the flash banning.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
I think, like you were saying, Eli, Shivam is a good example of a advisory group member that will listen and, very, very willing to. I mean, he's very opinionated, of course, but like anyone, I think anyone can have their mind changed with, friendly conversation or dialogue.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not everyone, but you know what I mean. But yeah. So I suppose, do you want to, after that tangent a little bit, do you want to just kind of wrap up this kind of ban list discussion by talking about some of the other formats, like how we compare the Commander ban list to, like, standard Modern, Legacy, Vintage stuff?
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask the question, or go over how ban lists function in other formats, because I searched into this, and Wizards actually, like, on their banned and restricted lists on the mothership, they have a little paragraph about how they say cards are usually banned from play if they enable a deck or playstyle that heavily skews the play environment. What does that mean? If the card were legal, a competitive player either must be playing it or must be specifically targeting it with his or her own strategies. Some cards are banned because they have proven to simply be too powerful in their respective format, while hundreds of hours are spent rigorously playtesting sets before their release. The complexity of Magic makes it nearly impossible to accurately predict all the ways the new cards interact with older ones. Cards whose art, text, name, or combination thereof that are racially or culturally offensive are banned in all formats. The list is a work in progress. So that's just kind of unrelated at the end.
Yeah, that was about the cards they banned a year ago.
Yeah, like Invoke Prejudice and stuff like that.
Crusade and stuff like that.
But I think that's a pretty simple point, talking about how if, like, say, a card shows up in, like, you have the top 8 lists from competitive Magic.
Like, after Modern Horizons 1, there was a period of time where, like, Hogak was, like, 7 of the 8 top 8s for, like, every event, because it was just that ubiquitous and powerful, and even the decks that were specifically made to counter them could not do so enough. So, and you was just like, that was what you had to play, otherwise you weren't competing.
Yeah, so the argument there became, well, if you want to be in the top 8, you either play Hogak, or you play the deck specifically built to beat Hogak.
Yeah,
right?
you play main deck for Rest in Peace or something, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, so the problem with that, comparing that to the Commander format, is we don't really have, any meaningful data for the format. First of all, we have EDH Rec, which is not play experience data, right? That's only deck list data, and besides that, I think all we have is that one study that the Command Zone did a while back on like YouTube games of Commander. And I don't hold a lot of.
They went through and analyzed games from Star City Games Commander Versus, Commander Clash from MTG Goldfish.
Was it MTG Mudsta as well?
I think he was left out of that one. They might have, like, if they do another one of these things, they might add him. But then they also added, like, their game nights and stuff, and that's a very small amount of games. And
also, it's not representative of the format, because it's specifically, there's a lot of factors there. But my point is, that's all we have, at all, for Commander data, as far as I'm aware. And, like, it doesn't even nearly approach any way of making any decisions based on that.
Basically. Until you get to 4 colors. Too. Once you get to 4 colors, white's okay. But before 4 colors, white is dragging you down. So
that's actionable data right there.
Yeah.
Hey, just jumping in here in post-production to say that if this is the way that content creators are going to use the word actionable data, then I never want to hear anyone say that again, because the idea that the Command Zone study shows that adding white to your deck lowers your win percentage and makes it worse, and then saying that's actionable data, saying that players should take white out of their deck because it is actively making their deck worse, is just mind-bogglingly stupid, and, like, they should be ashamed for saying that.
You can't approach Commander ban lists with that same data sense in mind. So, and also, there's a lot to be said about, like, regular, constructed format being a competitive format, whereas Commander isn't inherently a competitive format. Like we said earlier on the document, winning maybe is the second goal. The first goal is having fun, right? Mm-hmm. And, with that being said, like, even if a card is maybe you play this card or you're not being competitive, like, being competitive isn't necessarily the goal, right?
Right.
So, don't try to equate the Commander ban list with the constructed format ban list.
Yeah, so like you were saying about how those ban lists are regulated for competitive play. I have seen, like, some, like, Reddit threads or, like, just people talking about, like, the idea of should CEDH have a separate ban list from Commander, because the Commander ban list, the Commander ban list does not care about competitive play, really. Like, a lot of those cards aren't banned specifically because they're too strong. Like Sway of the Stars and Worldfire aren't banned for like power reasons. They're banned because they're griefer cards.
cards.
And I'm gonna say, arguably, I don't think they really like add anything. Like that's a lot of cards on the ban list. They've just banned because they don't like add anything positive to the game experience.
Sure.
But yeah, what do you think about that? Like the CEDH.
Idea of a separate CEDH ban list. So I've always been on the record saying that I don't like the idea of a CEDH specific ban list because that fractures the community even more, and there would be there's arguments about whether decks are CEDH or CEDH in mind or whatever. But yeah, I just don't like the idea generally of making multiple formats. I think CEDH is more a subset of EDH. But there might be some pretty good arguments though for making CEDH a different ban list, or would it be like a ban list not for CEDH but for people with the intention of playing competitively? Because I guess it's different. Maybe that is the same as CEDH, but like you could play like sixes, but like competitively, but maybe not, because then you would be not playing competitively. I'm not entirely sure. It's very confusing.
I'm not sure if we've ever like talked about this on the podcast, but I like the example that you've come up with before is like, what if you just had this deck that's like mostly lands and then like some like the rest of the deck is just like combo pieces and stuff.
Yeah.
Like is that a competitive deck? Like I don't know. Like it fits like a certain
criteria, but and should that, and let's say you bring that deck out to a casual table, like should that be scrutinized to the same, or not scrutinized, but that should be held to the same ban list as the CEDH ban list or the regular ban list? I'm not quite sure. It's just there's a lot of, maybe that's not a great argument because you would just argue that is a CEDH deck, but I don't know. That being said, there's a lot of consideration that I think should be given to CEDH players, because I think there is a lot of hate that CEDH players get. I am not a CEDH player personally, but yeah, there's at least in the past, as of late it's been better, but at least in the past there's been a lot of stigma against CEDH players just for like playing the way they want to play or whatever.
Well, yeah, like we were talking about, I think what would happen is sometimes people there's this like idea of like the pub stomper and stuff, and a lot of those players that would do that, like bring the very strong or competitive deck, would bring this deck to a casual game of Commander, and a lot of the time I don't even feel like those decks would be like a fully like tuned like CEDH list.
Yeah, they're usually like a strong casual deck, right?
Yeah, like the top end of like just like below CEDH, because I think that player kind of has an understanding that if they go and play with other competitive
CEDH
players,
they'll lose.
Yeah, they're going to lose
because their deck isn't made to stand up to that. So that's why it's a bit of a slippery slope of like, I don't know, not a slippery slope, but just some ambiguity there. And I'd be curious to hear what like the consensus is from CEDH players, because I follow a lot of them on Twitter. I have some friends that are CEDH players, and I'm not entirely sure if they want a separate ban list or not. I was curious what they want, right?
Yeah.
And obviously not every CEDH player is going to want the same thing, but yeah, what the consensus from the community is, I would be curious about.
Yeah, because I think we both believe it is the same game. It's just like different leagues almost,
mm-hmm.
Like
in like a competitive like a MOBA or something. Like you have like your your silver and your gold or whatever, and then CEDH is like the challenger players or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. But we're all playing the same game.
Sure. Yeah. Or maybe CS:GO. You're whatever I don't remember what the top level of that is, but I digress. So is that all we had, or do we have some more?
Well, I wanted to ask, does it even I've seen some people, or like some people might ask the question, does it even make sense to have a ban list for a casual format?
I'm not entirely sure the answer to that question, because let me just lay out some of the things that go through my mind when you say that. Obviously, having a ban list is good because you want to eliminate certain things that like homogenize the format. But also, if you're gonna just pretty much only do that as examples, and you're not going to ban the rest of the cards that do that, it kind of maybe could be like a slap in the face, like, oh, why is this banned but not this, right? So I don't even know if there's even really a point.
Well, if you're going to have things fall back onto Rule 0 so frequently, like, why not just say, well, it's up to, I think like the more franchise Commander players, or like people on the keg and stuff, if the ban list was gone overnight, and then they got to play Commander the next day, I don't think they'd start playing a bunch of cards that are on the ban list, right?
I mean, you'd obviously maybe slot out a couple in your decks, but yeah, I don't think players are going to, like, start, just doing really degenerate stuff. At least the average player is not going to do that. If Braids was legal tomorrow, I don't think everyone would make a Braids deck, right?
Yeah, and a lot of cards on that list are not very easily accessible cards, so...
Oh yeah, like if they unbanned like Black Lotus or something, I don't think that's going in people's decks, right?
Yeah, I don't think we'd see a lot of... I mean, I guess some people are...
You'd proxy it or something. I wouldn't be happy. I don't think I'd be happy with my opponents proxying a Black Lotus. I think I would say, sorry, bro, I'm not very cool with that one.
Right.
But yeah, another thing to mention, I guess, is that, there's that concept of, like, if there was no ban list, like, how would, like... So players will already do the thing where, like, let's say you have 3 players at a table and the 4th player brings out their Golos deck or their Kenrith deck or something. There's already, like, a stigma of, like, oh, maybe we don't want you to play that. Or, like, the Command Zone we'll talk about, someone brings out their Tiny Bones deck and they're like, well, you pick something else, right? Like, would that not be the case if there was no ban list and someone brought out their Braids deck? Wouldn't it be the same thing? People would be like, no, don't play that.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like maybe that is an argument for a removal of the ban list. That being said, I'm not in favor of getting rid of the ban list, but that's a decent argument in favor of that.
Well, I think it's the main reason it's good to have the ban list is because that's, like we were saying, people don't read the philosophy document, people don't consume content, but you can search Commander ban list into Google and right away you get the mothership, the main Wizards website, and you get a page of all the different ban lists, and it's very simple and it's easy to see, and I think everyone, at least most players, are aware of that.
Yeah.
And you might occasionally have somebody who's come back into playing Commander after a couple of years and they might not know something's changed, but that's usually probably a pretty easy fix.
Oh, you're saying like maybe a Commander player that's not super enfranchised into watching content and stuff might not be aware of like the anti-mass land destruction stigma or something, right? And they bring their mass land destruction, but for some of the cards like on the ban list, it's very easy for them to see like, oh, okay, Primeval Titan's banned, I'm not going to play that, whatever, versus, like, if there was no ban list, they might not be aware that people don't want to play against that.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. I think, Eli, what you told me, you played a game at one point where you were playing your Gonti deck, right? And you Gonti'd someone and you got their Emrakul, the banned one.
Yeah, somebody was playing Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn in their deck, and I played Gonti, Lord of Luxury on them and took their Emrakul, and then I played it, like, the next turn or something and was like, yeah, this card's banned.
This is why it's banned, by the way.
It's banned.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah. So, speaking of that, Eli, it's kind of nice to get back to in-person play these days, right? Like, I mean, we've been going for a couple weeks now after, our local game store opened up, and I've been having a good time.
Yeah, and one of the things that, this isn't, like, disparaging towards anybody we've played with or anything, but since we've been going back to the shop, like we've played with some people and like really nice people and everything, but they're very they seem very like casual Commander players or like new Commander players. Yeah. So that kind of just got me thinking about like how much people know about the ban list or like Commander in general, and like it's not a bad thing that they don't know certain stuff, right? If they don't know about things like Rule 0, and because it's not an easy thing to explain. And really, aside from like the big creators like Command Zone and stuff, they probably don't consume a lot of content, or if any.
Yeah, well, one thing, Eli, that I think is kind of funny is that, like you said, we're experiencing a lot of players who maybe are returning players from years and years ago, or, they just started playing Magic Arena over COVID, and they're just getting their first couple Commander decks and coming to the store. A lot of these players have, a lot of opinions that are very... some opinions we disagree with, like things like very things you hear from like Command Zone and stuff like that, things that are maybe a lot of times are fine, but like for example, we're Boros bros, right? Mm-hmm. And you hear people talking about like Boros. I opened a Boros card and now I'm sad because it's a Boros card, but Eli and I, we got this scheme where we just pull out our Boros decks and we show off how epic Boros is, and we're indoctrinating all the new players to have a positive perception of Boros.
Yeah, not an aggressive
No.
But like, yeah, I actually I played a game last week, I think, where one of my opponents, he was playing a like kind of like a casual like Winota deck, but he was like doing good stuff and like playing like mostly like pretty good cards, just like some like good humans and like that like maybe make like non-human tokens, so like not like the all-in like Winota. I don't even think he played his commander that game, but he was just playing like good cards and good stuff, and 2 board wipes happen, and obviously like that's a deck that commits creatures to the board, and so he had a few creatures out each time a board wipe happened, and like he still like had a few cards in his hand. And I think there was this board state it came to towards the end of the game where he had like Mangara out, he had Godo, which went for like a Sword of Feast and Famine for him, which he had just triggered the last turn, and he had a couple things like he had the biggest board arguably, but he only had like 3 cards in his hand, but with that Mangara in play. And as he goes to pass the turn, he's just like, he looks at his 3 cards, he's like, man, Boros sucks. And I'm like, well, look at your board.
Any deck would lose to board wipes. Like any creature deck fumbles the board wipes, not just Boros decks.
Well, and he had a full board of cards. He had 3 cards still in his hand. He had as much mana as anybody else, pretty much.
A card draw engine.
And he was drawing more cards from the Mangara, and still is like, man, Boros. And it's like, well, he ended up winning that game, by the way.
Yeah,
so,
nothing against that person, of course, but what my point is Elijah and I are spreading the good word, and we're we're trying to fight back against the the command zone and the EDHTakes of the world that are they're shitting on Boros, and we got to teach them.
Well, yeah, I guess if you're like, if it's drilled into your head that all you should care about in the game is how many cards you have in your hand, like I guess you would look at that situation, because I guess everyone else at that time had like pretty full grips. I mean, one player had a Sylvan library. I was just not committing a lot to the board, and I had played my Shadrix deck and was drawing a couple cards, and another player had a Guardian Project or something like that. But
yeah, and as long as until the point where they get their stuff removed, they're still taking game actions and have ways to put pressure on their opponents with their hand, with Sword and Feast and Famine. They have a ton of mana, their life total, they can play their commander. Like there's a lot of actions to take.
Yeah, so that was just a little anecdote.
Yeah. But yeah, like just to go back for a second, yeah, like we're not going on and indoctrinating people, really. That was mostly a joke. But I think it can be. I think one thing that we noticed, Eli, is you were playing with a couple people that were a little bit newer, and you played a land tax on turn 1, and they're like, wait, that does what? That draws 3 cards every turn?
Yeah, I played a land tax turn 1, kind of got like wow, that seems really good. And then turn 2, I played Sarah Ascendant, and one of them was like, what?
That's fair? And it's like
I thought it was just funny, like playing like the 2 best white cards, and just like how newer players are like, well, that's pretty good. But you don't hear podcasts and like other creators and stuff talk about the top end of like the cream of the crop too often. And I get it, some of those cards are kind of expensive. Like I think one of them asked me like how much a land tax costs, and I had to guess probably over $20 right now. It's gone as low as like $20 in the past, but it's always reprinted as like a mythic rare. And
yeah, and that sucks. That's one of the problems, is like a lot of the good white cards are expensive, and in like even Archaeomancer's Map, the new good one, it's at least $10, probably more now. So yeah, but it was a fun experience to see that sort of thing happen, where players are like, oh yeah, I didn't know about that. So
yeah, it's nice meeting new people and hopefully cultivating a good experience in the shop, and like hopefully these people keep coming back. We're not like going out there and like trying to like pub stomp with like Boros decks. I used to do that. That's not the life for
that's not the life anymore. Yeah, but just having some good old fun, But yeah, so we've been having a lot of fun at the game store, and playing some Modern, some Commander, stuff like that. Is there anything else you want to mention, Eli?
Well, I just wanted to mention before closing this up that kind of one of the prompts to do this topic was that recently the Commander Advisory Group and the Rules Committee had their is it like yearly or bi-yearly meeting? They do meetings every once in a while on like Discord or something, and so they like Shivam tweeted out that they were going into this meeting, and like everyone like asking if anyone wants to get any thoughts in, because like I was saying, like they ask for people's opinions and they want to hear.
Yeah, they're like, hey, Commander Committee, is there anything you want me to bring up in this meeting?
So it just got people like
talking about
throwing in their suggestions and like talking about like what might get banned, what might get unbanned. I don't think anything's going to get banned or unbanned. They haven't come forward with like the decisions made from that meeting yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll kind of do like a summary like afterwards. I think Sheldon or somebody might write articles about it, or they'll talk about it, but I haven't heard anything yet. So I was just wondering, if anyone wants to guess at if anything might get banned or unbanned, or if you think there's something that should be banned or unbanned.
Yeah, do you want my hot takes, Eli?
Yeah, let's give a couple of ours maybe. What we think.
All right, these are my hot. Okay, first of all, I don't think anything is going to change, and I'm not asking them to unban these cards. But cards that I'd like unbanned, I want my Paradox Engine back, and I want my Prophet of Krufix back. Those are things I want back. What about you, Eli?
I think I kind of agree. I think Paradox Engine would be fine. I mean, it is a really strong card. Prophet of Krufix, I wouldn't see them doing that one, because that one's a card that's like really strong for like that casual side of Commander that the rules committee like really enjoys, and it's probably like too strong for that area of Commander.
Yeah.
But I've always thought like, I like the idea of unbanning some cards, and there's definitely stuff that would need, like, I'd probably say like something like Palancron should be banned because it meets like all those criteria for why something is on the ban list.
Sure.
But that's another card, like, it's not very easily accessible, and like not a lot of people have it.
It's expensive, yeah.
So I could see that. But I always thought I like Sundering Titan.
Yeah.
And I know that's like kind of a meanie no-no thing, like destroy people's lands, but hear me out. So if you're playing if I'm playing a Boros deck with Sundering Titan, and nobody else is playing red and white, I have to destroy 2 of my lands.
Assuming that you have...
If I have basics.
Yeah. Yeah, or, Shocklands or Plateau or whatever.
Yeah, so it's...
Yeah, there's that issue of, like, the Goblin Welder thing, right? Where, like, you can, like, Goblin Welder it out, and then
right.
also when it leaves, it also does it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit gross, but, I mean, there's gross things you can do with Goblin Welder no matter what, right? So, I don't know, I guess that'd be kind of interesting. I wouldn't hate the idea of a Sundering Titan unban.
I just want another Sun Titan.
Yeah, another Sundering Titan. Yeah, I gotcha. Oh, and also, unban Worldfire for the memes. No, if you want an actual thing, but I haven't, like, done too much thought into all of these, because, like, they're banned, there's not as much of a point for me to, like, brew with them, right? Or, like, figure out, like, what is the grossest thing you can do. But is Recurring Nightmare that gross, or is that a card that could be unbanned? I kind of think that one maybe. Which is the enchantment that says, I think you can sacrifice a creature and return a creature from your graveyard to your battlefield and put it back in your hand, or something like that.
Yeah, like you pay, it's 3 mana, and you sacrifice a creature and return the Recurring Nightmare to your hand.
And reanimate a creature.
And then reanimate a creature.
From your graveyard,
at sorcery speed.
Yeah. Or I think it might be instant speed. Is it sorcery speed? I don't remember. Whatever, but yeah, maybe that's a card that could... I mean, I understand it's a great-ass card, but, like, maybe...
Among your top tier of Reanimator cards.
Oh, for sure. But, yeah, just, I'd obviously, unban Iona, duh. But besides that, I don't think we want to really go too much more about the ban list. We're just kind of doing this as, like, a fun thing. I don't actually want them to unban anything, and I don't think they will.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand, like, Iona getting banned. Like, you could play Iona and name blue, and then everyone's just having so much more fun in that game. So I don't see the problem there. But
yeah.
Anyways, yeah, if you want to let us know in the comments, what you think of the ban list, how it works, and if you would change anything, if you got any like good takes on how you think the ban list could be better, like if it could work, if there was a way to make it function like more cleanly and simply, that'd be cool. But I think they're doing a pretty good job right now. So, yeah. Also, let us know if you think anything should be banned or unbanned. I'd like to hear that and, like, kind of see what people think.
Yeah, kind of read the room kind of thing. CEDH players, tell me if you think you want a different ban list or not. Other than that, do all the subscribe and follow our Twitter stuff.
Yeah, give us a like, subscribe. That'd be really nice. Absolutely get those comments in. And you can find us on Twitter at EDHTakes.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening. I've been Elijah Samuelson.
I'm Spencer Cook, and I think we'll have another episode out probably in a week and a half or so from now.
Hopefully soon.
Yep. Thanks for listening.
Bye.